Dube joins us, founder and managing director and chief executive officer with Akasa Air. So Dube, good morning. Thank you for joining us. These are challenging, interesting, and I would say very, distinct, unique times for the airline industry. Crude is up, full service has started, and also on the other hand, there is going to be a pricing war, at least in India, given that a lot of airlines are coming. What do you want to start with?
Why do I want to start? Well, I think the answer is pretty simple, because we are not starting our airline for, to last 1 month or 1 year or 2 years. We're starting our airline because we believe in the long-term future of India. And to be honest, it's not even an Akasa Air story or an aviation story. It's an India story. We think for the next 20 years, the country is going to grow, the economy is going to grow. We believe that aviation is in its nascency. And, our strong belief is that if you run a good, solid airline, professionally managed with a good cost structure, and provide the kind of service that customers are looking for, I think you can build a durable business. So, our view is that we're looking through the immediacy of the issues that are on the table today.
For the industry per se, and if you would like to talk about your airline specifically, we would appreciate that as well. But for the industry per se, with crude going higher and ATF pricing where they are at the current juncture, is the airline industry making money, or it is finding it difficult to sustain?
Yeah. So I think that's a tough question to answer universally. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the leading low-cost carrier and the other low-cost carriers, there's already a 10 to 20% differential in unit costs. When you extend that comparison between low-cost carriers and full-service carriers, the difference in unit costs are even higher. Beyond that, the airlines' networks are different. The price elasticity of the demand that each of them target is different, and their revenue management practices are different. So I don't think it's easy to say whether the current set of circumstances is going to yield profitability across the board. My view, and again, I can extend this to Akasa Airlines specifically, that if we've got a very competitive cost structure, and if we manage ourselves professionally and take care of both our employees and our customers, my view is that we can create a sustainable and profitable business. So I have a lot of confidence in what we think we can do over the course of the next several years.
Sure. Vinay, that's your side of the story. But I also want to understand how you think the consumer is going to, behave. Because for the last 2 years, no one has spent on anything. So sure enough, there is that vengeance travel, pent-up demand, what have you. Economies are opening up. COVID is close to nil. So business travel is also going to come back. And at the same time, because of escalation, and not just with crude prices in our daily lives pretty much, the consumer is also going to get a little bit price conscious. So in that sense, would you say airlines such as yours, because you are, a low-cost carrier, as are many other in the industry as well, do you think, organically one would deviate towards and tilt towards low-cost carriers as opposed to, international travel, which is exorbitant right now?
Yeah, I think there are different kinds of people in India, as you know today. There are some people that gravitate towards luxury goods, but for the bulk of India, they're looking for just good value for money, right? I mean, there's so many sayings there, but one that comes to my mind here is swasta ani masta, for those of you that might be familiar with this, right? You want something that is dependable, something that, provides high quality and caring and kind customer service on time, and of course, very affordable. And my thought is that if that's the kind of airline we can build, or that's the kind of airline that exists out there, I think it's going to do very well. The other part in terms of, vengeance travel, I'll sort of put that and restate what I said again, is that, we are, and I don't think airlines in general should be looking at what happens in the next 6 to 12 months. You got to create a robust and durable business that has an ability to sustain, the next 20 years. And by any measure you look at when it comes to consumer demand, aviation is in its nascency. So whether Akasa comes and goes, whether the existing carriers come and go, it doesn't matter. India will have 1,000 additional aircrafts flying in our skies over the course of the next 20 years. And this is where, our thought is that if we're able to, deliver what the customers are looking for, I think we will be one of them.
1,000 aircrafts in next 20 years, 1,000 additional aircrafts in next 20 years. But I'm curious to know, when will your first aircraft fly?
Well, our first aircraft from a commercial flight perspective, we are targeting the month of June. So it's just around the corner.
And tickets opening very soon with a discount?
No, tickets will open, probably 30 days prior.
Okay.
Not much before that.
Let me, for the benefit of our viewers, talk about the scenario in the Indian airline industry. Rebirth of Air India, revival of Jet Airways, birth of Akasa. Could there be a price war, like a price war what we saw in the telecom market? Or do you expect airlines to remain much more conscious about the ticket pricing?
Look, this is, again, I don't like evading questions, but this is one where, we just can't tell. I can't speak on behalf of any other airline, and it's difficult to know what they will do, which is why we focus on just, ourselves. And, our view is that if we can create a cost structure that is very competitive, then, it doesn't matter whether, there is a price war, there isn't a price war, we will find that we can compete with the best. And that's what we're focused on.
The USPs on time. What will be Akasa's USP? Before time or always on time?
No, I think that we need to go much beyond on time. I think on time, as they say, is table stakes. I think we need to be, kind and courteous in our service offering. I think we need to have our bags be delivered on time. I think we need to offer, network structure that is palatable and attractive for consumers. I think you need to have a technology experience that is something that customers appreciate and that is the world's best. So I think on time is really table stakes, and that at Akasa we're looking to go much beyond that.
With crude at $100, and if it stays at $100, will that reset a lot of assumptions? Will that force you to think again?
No, not us at Akasa. I can tell you that I have lived through 4 or 5 years of Brent crude being above $100 at my former employers. And we made money, pre-tax margin, through each one of these years when crude was above $100. So my view is that, there is money to be made, at crude above 100 for airlines that are well managed and well run. And we hope to be one of those.
Let's understand the growth. Now there is this trunk route which is there, Mumbai to Bangalore, Bangalore to Mumbai, Chennai to Bangalore. That's where the competitive intensity is. But there is also this entire new India which is getting connected because of the UDAN program, new airports, new cities, smaller destinations. Where do you think there is more meat for the business?
So I'll tell you where we are targeting. We are targeting travel between the metro cities and the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. That's where we believe you're going to see the maximum amount of growth for the next several years. And that's where we think we are best suited to play as Akasa. Although, having said that, I think, as I said, India is in its nascency as far as aviation is concerned. So I think you're going to see growth everywhere. But we think this is, to use your phrase, this is where the meat is for us.
Good morning. I know Nikunj asked you one question with discounted pricing, but I'm going to take that forward and ask you, in the past, when Indigo took it to the skies, we had a price war. When SpiceJet made its comeback, we had a price war. Will the consumers benefit with Akasa going to the air, the new airline, a price war, discounted pricing?
Well, I would say, stepping away from price wars or discounted pricing, I think any increase in competition is good for consumers. And that's not just price related. And again, I know you're trying to get me to comment on prices, but it's just honestly, it's just not something that I can either today or later comment on. But I think with Akasa stepping in and or other players stepping in, competition always benefits the consumer. And I think in this particular case, you will also find the increase in competition with Akasa coming in to be extremely beneficial for consumers. And I think they should look forward to it. But like I said, it's also incumbent on us to be able to service our customers well, which is where our preparations are focused on today.
I'm going to quote Rajiv Bajaj here. There's one thing which I love to quote him publicly, which is that I'm in the business of being the most profitable two-wheeler company, maybe not the biggest two-wheeler company. So what would be your endeavor? Market share gain, get it to 10-12%, or focus on profitability from day one?
No, I think it's a focus on profitability, but that really is a byproduct of focusing on the consumers and focusing on our employees. So to me, profitability is not the sort of the first two items that come to mind, but it's a follow-on item on focusing on consumers and focusing on our employees. But within the remit of what you have quoted, absolutely, we are not looking for market share. Our heroes, as far as aviation are concerned, are not the largest airlines in the world, but the most profitable airlines in the world. The airlines that stand by their consumers and customers, airlines that stand by their employees. Those are the airlines that we admire, and those are the airlines that we aspire to be. So we're very, very certain on which side of that court we want to be on.
Vinay, the profitability word reminds me that one of your largest investors, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, who has a 40% stake in Akasa, each time we interact with him, he says, I have an NDA, I'm not going to speak on Akasa. But I'm very curious to know, how often does he chat with you guys? Because, he monitors everything on a macro and micro level going on with the world economy like a hawk, right? So I'm sure he's also going back to the drawing board and figuring out how profitable would his proposition of Akasa turn out to be, given what's happening with crude and everything else?
So first, I'll say we're extremely fortunate to have Mr. Jhunjhunwala be investor in Akasa. We wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here sitting talking to you if that were not the case. And he is a sort of legendary investor. He's a talisman, and so we hope that we will have some of that rub off in Akasa. In terms of how often he talks to us, it's really sort of as often as he thinks is warranted. For us, we are open to having meetings and discussions with all our investors. But I will say, as has been the case with Mr. Jhunjhunwala, he's invested in a number of companies, and not one, two, but 40, 50 companies across his career. And I think he is the perfect investor that has the perfect balance of both advice, control, but also letting management teams do what management teams have been trained to do. So I couldn't be happier with what we have today.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I asked because, the other companies that you talked about and the ones he's invested in, he sometimes grills them on conference calls. So I'm just curious to know, when was the last time he spoke with you?
Yeah, it's, I'll tell you that we absolutely appreciate that. I've always felt that, if you're surrounding yourselves with very smart people, you got to be open to the questions that they ask, and you can't be defensive about it. So we've had, and we continue to have, very, very, interesting discussions. And I really appreciate his perspective. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn from, for all of us from his perspective.
How did the idea come to you? You got a long understanding of the aviation sector, and it's been a tough sector. The Indian aviation sector is a tough sector. And globally also, aviation is not an easy sector. It's not like launching a consumer brand or an internet company or a startup which is funded by PE capital. How did you get the idea? What gave you the courage? The big picture was always there, but yet, I mean, there are hardly few success stories.
Yeah, I think, for me, having, spent 30 years, plus 32 years now of my career in aviation, it was a pretty simple decision. It was really, on the one hand, you look at the India story. And like I said, when you look at the trips per capita, the amount of Indians that have, actually traveled by air, we are in the very, very early stages of aviation. So you look at that on the one hand, and then you look at, the ability for airlines to make money is based on sort of very few simple principles. One of them, have a competitive cost structure, and two is really have a professionally run, professionally managed, airline. And I think, for me, it was very easy to put the two of these together way back in, 2020, and to say, look, I think this can be done. But again, keep in mind that that this doesn't happen, through an individual and an individual's, either idea or hard work. I had, many co-founders, as you well know, that if it wasn't for their support, and the support of some key partners, I wouldn't have had the courage to embark on this journey.
You're going to be starting with 18 aircraft. They'll go up to 72. We've asked you about that busy Delhi-Mumbai corridor, but all of those that are tuning in, do you want to give us a sense of the kind of cities? Will you do what other airlines have done, begin only with the bigger cities? There's a lot of talk about UDAN, regional connectivity. What's going to be the initial focus?
Yeah, so for us, it's from the metro cities. So, Mumbai, Bengaluru, Delhi, Hyderabad, Chennai, Calcutta, to the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So from Mumbai, for example, there'll be a plethora of cities that we will fly to that aren't the metro cities. Of course, we will have to have a few of the Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore connectivities just to move our aircraft around, the system. But that's not going to be, where we will focus. And honestly, there are 25 different cities we're looking at. Up and down India, whether it's, Ahmedabad, Lucknow, Chandigarh, Trivandrum, Bhubaneswar. I mean, honestly, a plethora of these cities that we could serve from our metro cities. And that's where we will focus on initially.
So, Dube, the airline industry in India, at least with my understanding, my limited understanding, is that there are models like Indigo, which are fleet specific, destination focus, and route specific. Then you got Air India, which is a mix of everything and long distance. Who will be the survivor here? Focused companies, focus on the fleet, focus on the route, don't try to be adventurous, or it is all about experimentation and getting everything right?
No, I think it's neither. And to be honest, I will compare, people say, oh, aviation is very, very unique. And in many ways, it is unique. But in many ways, it follows the economics of, manufacturing or pharma or, tech or FMCG or, banking. And so I would say that when you look at any one of those industries, you have a mixture. For example, you've got a mixture of, the luxury car market and, the non-luxury car market. And it's hard to say, that one makes money and one doesn't, or that one will survive and one doesn't. I mean, I think you have a segmented consumer demand in almost every industry. I'm also a firm believer in looking at what happens in other parts of the world, the more developed aviation economies around the world, whether it's Europe or North America, to understand, what might happen in India, because I think those are, sort of the bellwethers of what we might see in aviation in India. And in all of those economies, you've got a mixture of low-cost carriers and then the full-service carriers, both of which have survived and thrived and had the ability to make money. So I don't think you're going to, see this push towards just a single type or a single category of carrier anywhere in the world.
Last but one question. If I look at the global scenario, why globally airline business has been a very tough business. The success ratio here is almost 1:10, and it's no different in India.
Yeah, that's again. There's no sort of simple answer for that. But one thing that comes to mind is that we're a young industry, right? We have been deregulated in the US, which is one of the first markets to be deregulated, maybe 50 years ago, or 40, 45, 44 years ago. And in this period, we've moved all the way from aviation that really was only for the rich and famous to aviation today, where the Aam Aadmi can actually dream of traveling by air. And so I'd say, first and foremost, it's a young industry, and for any young industry, there is going to be a healthy amount of turmoil in its early days. And so my view is that we're at the stage where we are getting to be much more mature. We're getting to be, at the stage where aviation air travel is now affordable for all. In fact, like I said, one of the things that Akasa wants to do is to continue this effort of democratization of air travel that was started in India a few years ago. That's where we think, we will find our marketplace. And so I think over a period of time, you will find, just like any essential industry, and let's not kid ourselves, aviation is just as essential as any other industry. I think you'll find that airlines around the world find a way to make money. So I'm very hopeful, and that's part of the reason that we have entered. We've entered to serve the people of India. We've entered to be the economic growth engine and to support the economic growth engine of India. We've entered to democratize air travel in a very sustainable and consumer-friendly manner. And we hope to be around for a number of years, and hope to be around in a profitable manner for a number of years.
Consumer, I have a simple question. Will I be getting warm tea and coffee if I fly Akasa, that too for free, or I'll have to pay for it?
You'll get warm tea and coffee. I think you'll get much more. You'll get it with a smile. You'll get it with kindness. You'll get it with on-time performance. You'll get it with your bags delivered on time. And I look forward to having you on board Akasa flights.
But with a bill, right? That's the part you didn't answer, Vinay.
I didn't, but I'm happy to. I don't shy away from it. As I said, we will be a low-cost carrier, and as a low-cost carrier, we will be charging for food and other premium drinks like other airlines around the world.
How much is the permissible weight? 15 kgs?
That is correct. That is by law. Yeah.
Initially, you got to give us more.
Sorry?
15 kgs is too less. The bag itself is 4 kgs. That means 11 kgs is the net I can carry.
That's right. So 15 kgs is what the law is in India. And as you look across the board, most airlines are at 15 kilos.
Well, really appreciate your time. You've been very frank. You've been very forthcoming. And by the way, Aisha is insisting that as a child, when she used to fly Air India, the candies were free.
But Air India is not a low-cost carrier. There was no low-cost carrier that time.
Well, all I'll say is that there are a few bells and whistles we have not spoken about, things on Akasa that we wish to keep a surprise until the unveiling later on. And I will say you will not be disappointed if you travel on Akasa.
Don't worry, Vinay. He's in any case firing from my shoulder. That was his question. So don't take that one seriously. But good chatting with you. Good speaking with you.
Wonderful. Likewise. Thank you.